Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for pronouncing my name correctly. I always appreciate that. My name is Rob Beiswenger, Horseshoe Bend, Idaho, representing District 8, which covers Elmore, Boise, Valley, Custer counties, probably bigger than most New England states, maybe all of New England, as big as it is. So I'm here to introduce RS 32450, which deals with the current firefighters collective bargaining. Just a nutshell here, current law says that firefighters can negotiate over wages, rates, all kinds of terms of employment. Pretty much anything's on the table. This would narrow the scope down to just wages and hours. I do have a small amendment one of your members is familiar with, and we'll make a quick change here if that's okay, and just get it down to where it's supposed to be.
Okay, thank you, Representative. You want to tell us a little bit about what your amendment is that you're looking to make?
The amendment, just the LSO, the way they struck one of the lines didn't go far enough back, so they're just going to move that back a few words. So it'll end with wages and I think rates or hours, the way it's worked in there. Okay. After that will be stricken from law.
Okay, perfect. Are there questions for Representative Beiswenger? Representative Mickelson.
Mr. Representative and Mr. Chairman, can you tell me what problem you're trying to solve with this?
Representative Beiswenger.
Mr. Chairman, a good question. This will help, I think, make things a little more sort of business friendly, make the relationship between the elected officials and the taxpayers in sync with what here, like we're basically trying to erase some of the kind of extra rules that kind of get caught into negotiations here. I mean, Utah just recently passed a bill that banned all collective bargaining, including wages, but we'll leave wages in here for this one. But this one will kind of make it so it's a little more streamlined, a little more efficient, and so that way, the fire chiefs and the elected officials can work directly to make the kind of work rules they need, whether where people are, what kind of equipment they're getting, and they can make all those decisions kind of like a little more, I say, almost kind of business kind of ish.
Follow up?
So did you talk to anybody, Representative and Mr. Chairman, did you talk to anybody in the unions to get any input from them before you ran this bill?
Representative Beiswenger.
Mr. Chairman, no, I did not.
Representative Keeley's.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Beiswenger, so I was about to ask you why your strikeout didn't include and working conditions, and now I know that it did. So can you give us some examples of what might be some of the terms in an agreement that would fall under working conditions and all other terms and conditions of employment? Just some specific examples.
Representative Beiswenger.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I mean, it's a fair question. I think we'll probably air that out more at a full hearing than today. Things can be like staffing and station assignments, equipment use, emergency use protocols. I mean, literally, the list as it stands now would open up anything.
Follow up?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Representative Beiswenger, so how does this increase, how is this create public value, or this is in the public interest to separate those terms in a contract from everything else?
Representative Beiswenger.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, good question. It's going to make it a little more flexible, actually, maybe is a good word for it, where decisions can be made by the decision makers. Not everything's subject to negotiation, whereas a contract is drawn out. I mean, any business, you want to be flexible, you want to make movements. And we'll hear too, the people who are running the fire department overseeing it, they're going to be able to say, hey, we need to have this over here now. Not, hey, let's negotiate for 6 months and figure out if we can do this or not. That's the purpose.
Any further questions? Representative Dygart.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Representative Beiswenger, hopefully I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yep. So does this mean that city and county officials could straight up dictate what the working conditions would be with no negotiations at all?
Representative Beiswenger.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, yes, the elected officials will be held accountable by the taxpayers like they are in a lot of states, and this is what Utah did even to a larger extent over there. So the elected officials, so if they're not treating them right, they'll be thrown out of office, would be my answer to that.
Any further questions? Seeing none, the RS is properly before the committee. Representative Scott.
So I make a motion to introduce RS 32450 with the following changes. On line 14, after the word wages, strike out the comma and add the word and before rates of pay. And then on line 14, strike out the comma and the word and after rates of pay and add a period. And one more on line 15, strike out working conditions.
Okay, Committee, we have a motion to introduce RS 32450 with the following changes. On line 14, after the word wages, we would strike out the period and insert the word and after rates of pay, we would strike out the comma and the word and put a period, and then on line 15, we would strike out the words working conditions and. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Representative Keeley's.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to comment on the motion.
Certainly.
I have several concerns here. So number one, we've had this collective bargaining statute in place for 55 years. I don't think it needs to change. And what we're talking about in this RS is the ability of firefighters to negotiate around minimum staffing, input on SOPs, disciplinary processes, work schedules, basically everything that goes into operating a station, which is, I think, exactly where you want the expertise of the firefighters in the negotiation. And listen, I think we have a few folks here that would enjoy participating in a public debate on this. But I just think without the stakeholders' involvement in this RS, we should not move it to print. And an RS like this should have the firefighter's voice incorporated in it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Keeley. Further discussion on the motion? The motion is to introduce RS 32450 with the following changes. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Nay. The motion has carried. It will be introduced. The committee now